So at the end of every year, I do a summary video outlining the best emulators of that particular year. And it's no surprise that RPCS3 is always sure to be on that list, almost by default, because the amount of work that has been put into ensuring PlayStation 3 games are preserved is just something that has to be talked about. Even a few years ago, playing PlayStation 3 games on a handheld device like a Steam Deck or a ROG Ally wasn't really a great experience. I mean, it was a situation where it just felt like the emulator was just too demanding for a handheld device. But a lot of that has changed because the team has done some incredible work over the last few months. So we kind of closed out the year with some really great updates. And I think one of the main focuses of the RPCS3 team is to open up the emulator to a wider audience. And they're doing this in a number of different ways. Not only are they making the emulator more streamlined from a user experience perspective, they've also optimized the emulation so it really does perform exceptionally well, even on low-end systems. But what I really want to focus on today is the experience on handheld devices, because the last time I ran RPCS3 on a handheld was on my Steam Deck, probably about 2.5 to 3 years ago at this point. And I am extremely impressed with what I'm seeing with the performance improvements and tweaks and all the updates to the emulation. We're at a point now where I can safely say that RPCS3 runs pretty damn well on a device such as a Xbox ROG Ally. Now this is just the stock ROG Ally, not the Ally X, which would probably run a lot better because it has more memory and more processing. But even this experience by itself is quite impressive, as you can see here. And I talked about the compatibility percentage being just under 70%. And this was a really kind of good way to round out the year. On March the 3rd, 2026, the team released the 0.040 release, which emphasized usability. It added things like peripheral support. It added ISO handling, which is something that I think a lot of people have been wanting to see. But the team has not stopped. There has been some significant improvements to the core emulation, and in the last week or so, we've seen some SPU optimizations, which I would consider a key breakthrough to PlayStation 3 emulation, which includes these various micro optimizations. And when you start to incorporate a lot of micro optimizations, you start to see the benefit of that when you look at the bigger picture. There's also various tweaks to the PPU accuracy, as well as more save state enhancements, including multi-slot support, better SPU locking on load, asynchronous extraction, and various bug fixes. With RPCS3, I always felt like it was just a matter of time that the emulator would crash eventually. And now I've been using it over the last month or so. It has really been stabilized in a significant way. There's also various peripheral-based emulation updates as well, including USB microphones, mouse-based gyro emulation as well. The UI and UX, as mentioned, has seen an overhaul. So we've got the in-game list context menus, which is a lot better than it used to be, the improved log viewer. There's also been optimizations done to image uploads and polygon render modes, as well as enhanced PBR materials via cube mapping, as well as better water visuals, as we mentioned, across many games. And even this most recent announcement that RPCS3 now supports loading encrypted ISO images. So now we've seen a staggering improvement in that compatibility percentage. Even though this may seem like a small amount, this is quite significant. We're now up to almost 74% of all PlayStation 3 games are playable in RPCS3. And there's been a lot of progress to really kind of get more games running. And all of a sudden on my handheld device, my Xbox ROG Ally here, games are starting to become a lot more playable than I ever remember. In the past, I was not really able to get a good handheld experience with PlayStation 3 emulation via RPCS3. And as you can see, we're starting to get a really good experience. I'm not saying it's perfect by any stretch of the imagination, but being able to run PlayStation 3 games on these handheld devices is incredible in of itself, especially when you consider Sony still has yet to provide us a backward compatibility solution for PlayStation 3 on their PS5. Now, I think for me, the biggest technical breakthrough has to be the SPU emulation improvements or the optimizations that were done. And this is because obviously we know that the PlayStation 3 cell broadband engine or the cell processor is very, very specialized, and it's extremely difficult to emulate. And RPCS3 has come up with an interesting way to kind of make it run a lot better. And these SPU optimizations make the recompiler generate tighter and lower overhead code while preserving accuracy. Now, this is all thanks to the RPCS3 contributor known as ELAD335, and what they did was they would analyze real SPU code patterns from PlayStation 3 games and identified previously under-optimized and unrecognized usage patterns, and essentially applied these patterns to the optimization pass. So what happens here is that the recompiler detects these specific instruction sequences and then applies them to emit better x86 code. And this is a very interesting approach, right? Because it benefits a lot of games that take advantage of these SPU patterns that were identified. And it means games like Twisted Metal has seen average frame rates improve 5 to 7%, and even low-end CPUs see benefit in games such as Gran Turismo 5. And this SPU optimization scales from everything from a low-end potato machine to the highest-end hardware. And what's cool about this approach is there's no reliance on specific extensions like AVX512 to get those core gains, which means that anyone that has a PC good enough to run RPCS3 will see those improvements as well. So this is definitely the biggest breakthrough that we've seen from the RPCS3 team over the last several months. And of course, the team is not done. It's almost like every single day they tweet some new announcement, some new update of some new feature that's being added to the emulator or that's already in the emulator that we can try out. And every single day there is a nightly update that you can download and check out for yourself. I think that RPCS3 has just gone to another level here. They've really kind of just taken the mantle of one of the best emulators to have been ever developed. And I'm just such a huge fan of what the team is doing right now. And I'm just absolutely amazed about how far they can push PlayStation 3 emulation on PC. And the work continues with a long-term focus on this particular project. And I think the cycle of find and study real game code and what works, and then identify these patterns to generate better host code is really a smart idea. And for me, April 2026 has to go down as one of the very best months in emulation. This is a win across the board, not only for emulation enthusiasts, but for preservationists as well, because as I've said so many times, PlayStation 3 emulation is the savior. It is what will preserve these video games forever, because it doesn't seem like Sony is interested in providing us with a solution of their own to let us play these old games that we so dearly love. But we're going to leave it here for today's episode. I did want to cover RPCS3 because, look, a lot of people have been asking me to look at this, and it's something that I've just been sitting and waiting just to kind of gather all this new information and all this new data. But I'm so happy that the team is really just knocking it out of the park right now. And who knows, this particular video is probably going to be out of date in a week from now, because there's probably some really cool new features that are coming down the line that we are not privy to. I can't wait. We're going to leave it here for today's episode. Thank you so much for watching. If you liked it, please don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and we will catch you guys in the next episode. Bye for now.